So, TJ, I know we're going to get into benefits today. Obviously, you're a benefits consultant, and I would love to do that. But I think one of the original motivators was you have a very interesting story, right, about overcoming cancer. And you were very gracious to say, yes, I'd love to come on and share my story. I hope you don't mind. You know, sometimes you probably get tired of telling it, but I think it's something that touches a lot of people's lives. And I think just hearing your story, hearing your overcoming of that challenge, I think will resonate with a lot of people, and, you know, people can relate. So if you don't mind, would you kind of walk us through that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was 17 years old, I'd actually had been experiencing a lot of hip pain. I was a baseball player mainly, but I played football as well. And I remember 2 years prior to that, I thought I got hurt in football. Well, I would get a cortisone shot pretty much every 4 to 6 months just to make the pain go away in my hip.
Okay.
But I was in middle of baseball season, 2 years from the original pain. And my mom was like, hey, we got to get a different opinion on what's going on.
So they were just injecting you for 2 years?
They,
oh, wow.
They thought it was just a pinched nerve in my hip or down in my lower back. They had done some imaging on my back and didn't really find anything.
Okay.
And so I was having a really good year. I was a pitcher, and so I was having a really good year my junior year. And so I told my mom, I said, hey, let's finish baseball season.
Yeah.
Give me one more shot, and after that, we'll get another opinion. Well, we went to it was actually a physician assistant, PA, and he said, hey, you're having hip pain. Has there been any imaging on your hip? And I said, no. So well, let's get an MRI. Well, they found a tumor growing out of my hip joint at that point.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
So,
how large was it? Had it been growing for some time? I
yeah,
presume?
so it was just over between the size of a golf ball and a tennis ball. But it was like growing out of the actual joint, so you couldn't really see it from the outside. But yeah, it was certainly there, and got it biopsied, and it ended up being a pediatric cancer called Ewing Sarcoma. So it's a pretty rare cancer to have. Don't know the specific statistics on it, but like 1 in 500,000, I believe, kids get it. And so it's definitely like the lottery you don't want to win, obviously, especially at 17. So for me, it was the summer before my senior year, I got that news, and they did a full body scan, and I had 4 spots in my right lung. So
oh my goodness.
It had spread in that time, that from the time I was basically misdiagnosed for those 2 years. And so the protocol treatment called for, I'd go in the hospital for 3 days for chemo. I'd get out for about 10 to 15 days, and I'd go in for 5 days. And so it'd rotate. I was supposed to do 42 weeks of that. 42
weeks? My goodness.
Yeah, so it, for me, I was, at the time, I weighed about 205 pounds. The chemo and everything, I lost my hair, but I retained my weight, and I was able to continue with school that fall of my senior year, and actually at that time thought I could still play baseball. I was still training and like healthy in my mind to do that. But congruently, I had to do radiation because they could surgically remove the spots from my lung, but where it was in my hip, it caused too much damage to my hip.
So did they go into the lung spots?
They did,
they took those out surgically.
Took those out.
Okay.
But for my hip, they called for 10 weeks of radiation. And so for me, I had no concept of what radiation was.
Yeah.
And the best way I can explain it, it's just a prolonged X-ray. They put you in a room, they put these little tattoos on you, or at the time, and line you up, and then it's just like you just hear a buzz, and it just sounds like an X-ray machine going off, and it lasts for 30, 45 seconds, and then you're done.
Okay.
Well, so I did that 5 days a week for 10 weeks, but after about the 6th week, my skin was being burned essentially from the inside out. And so, it was, and my energy levels were just completely shot, and I knew it was a different ball game at this point. The chemo, like I said, I did fine, but the radiation was like, oh wow. So this was all, summer, fall of.
What year would this have been?
04.
04. Okay.
Yep. And then January of 05 rolls around, and my stomach starts hurting really bad, and so I go into the hospital, and what they found was the radiation had actually perforated all my intestines on my right side, and so. I go in, it was January of 05, supposed to be graduating in May of 05. Well, I was in the hospital from January through May, and I had 3 intestinal surgeries during that time. And so, like I said, I went in about 205 pounds, athletic guy. I come out of the hospital in May, about 135 pounds and in a wheelchair because I couldn't really walk.
So you lost what, 60 some odd pounds?
Yeah,
My goodness.
yeah. I didn't eat anything but ice chips for that period of time.
Yeah.
You know, and
because you're unable to keep food down, I guess.
Yeah, and just all the intestinal issues that were going on. It was just something that they just had to wean me back in on food essentially, you know, over time. So from there, basically, I was out of the hospital, but I'd go to physical therapy 3 days a week to again build strength, get my legs back under me essentially, and I did that for about 7 months thereafter. And so from that point in time, after that 7 months, finally was able to realize, okay, like what's life about now?
Yeah.
So I had to take kind of a full year off of school. I was supposed to, would start college, supposed to fall of 05. So I didn't start college until fall of 06 because I had to take the full year to kind of get my feet back under me and everything from there. But yeah, it was, like I said, it was an experience though for me that I always say it's kind of like the best and worst thing that happened, right? Because I was 17, 18 years old, getting hit with this news that's obviously life-changing, life-altering, but it taught me a lot about who I was and what I wanted out of life, the relationships I want to build. And I get to learn a lesson that a lot of people don't ever get to learn, right? To the degree, and, I still have physical scars that are a representation of that time. And so it's a daily reminder of, when my feet hit the ground, there's a sense of gratitude there.